Yeah, you're welcome again to the second segment of the conversation. Here, you know how we do it. We talk about Lagos and everything that has to do with Lagos. This morning, we're talking about 3 years of the 10th Lagos Assembly. 3 years after the inauguration of the 10th Lagos State House of Assembly. Questions are being asked. How well has the Assembly delivered on its constitutional mandate beyond the number of bills passed and motions moved? What has been the real impact on the everyday lives of Lagosians? And to help us examine these issues this morning is Mr. Jide Johnson, a communications expert and chief lecturer at the Nigerian Institute of Journalism, NIJ. You're welcome, sir. Oh, I was hoping you were not going to say that.
I hope you brought them water for us. So good morning to our viewers all over the world, and particularly the Gaussians in Lagos and in diaspora. It's a pleasure to be with the latest Alaja and my beautiful sister.
It's always a delight to have you join us.
It's always a pleasure to have you too, sir. Okay, just this morning we had this headline about a particular NGO, that assessed the 10th National Assembly, and it said, 68 pledges unmet. And towards the end of this tenure, 3 years is often seen as a reasonable period to assess a government institution. From your perspective, JJ, how would you describe the journey so far for the Lagos State House of Assembly?
Generally, there is usually a misconception about what should be the role of the legislature in democratic governance, in representative government, and particularly in the presidential system of government that will practice that separate the executive from the judiciary, and the executive from the legislature. And so this misconception tends to put emphasis on the legislature being an executive body that has controlling authority over funds, allocation of funds, and what have you. Whereas their responsibility is lawmaking, having oversight function, and serving as checks and balances to the powers of the executive. So if you look at it from that prism, let's look at how the 10th Assembly started. The 10th Assembly started in Lagos, particularly first and foremost, by rejecting the list of the commissioner that was sent by His Excellency, the Governor of Lagos State, as his commissioner nominee, insisting that this category of nominees are not fit and proper to serve as commissioner or special advisor in Lagos. And that itself set the tone in letting you know that to a large extent, to a certain degree, there's a measure of independence and there's a measure of checks and balances that the Lagos State House of Assembly has over the executive. On that note, you can give them a round of applause, because they understand their power, they understand their oversight function, and they understand their rules and their responsibility. And they stood their ground with respect to this person is not qualified to be a nominee, this person is qualified to be a nominee. And so we should score them high on that note. Another critical issue which you have to look at, the issue of the assembly, is the removal or non-removal of the speaker. You recall this assembly actually
was a major highlight.
A major highlight of this particular assembly, in which the State House of Assembly member, in their own wisdom, felt that, well, there's an overreach by the speaker and there's a need for us to have a change of guard, and they went ahead. But democracy has different types of institution. There's the party structure, and there is the government aspect of it, and I'm sure those that instituted the removal did not go through the party structure, and the party structure had to bring about an order with respect to, okay, you have to reinstate the speaker, you have to allow the status quo ante to maintain. If you compare Lagos State House of Assembly with other state House of Assembly, I will tell you Lagos State House of Assembly will rank highest among all the state House of Assembly in Nigeria. That is not to say that most assembly actually in Nigeria are just an extension of the governor's office. That's the reality. They are just an extension of. Hardly do you hear about about state House of Assembly, with the exception of few states, or when it's time for them to remove their speaker.
Okay, since we're still talking about evaluation, how can a Lagos resident, assess, his own lawmaker of his own constituency? What indicators can he use, to assess a lawmaker?
Well, what are the things that the lawmaker is able to fast track? And let me bring it home, and I'll personalize this, because the question you asked, for example, my own constituents, Ifakojaye 1 State House of Assembly, is represented by Honorable Adedeji Temitope Adewale Ata, and is doing his second term in office. If you compare what he's been able to fast track in terms of development into his constituency, compared to others that have occupied that position, even compared to others that have occupied even higher position, either at the National Assembly and what have you, you discover that he has done very, very, very well. What are the things you use to measure? What are the infrastructure you're able to pull into your communities? What are the infrastructure? What are the developmental programs and projects that you can attract? Because the goal of the House of Assembly member is to ensure that his constituent is adequately taken care of by the executive. He does not have the resources, but he has the voice, the voice to speak on behalf of his I'll give you an example, and I want to take it home. For example, if you are going through Ajayi Road, Ajayi Road in Ogba, and you want to connect, Ajayi Road is that's the boundary between Ikeja local government and Ifakojayi local government. Now, there is a canal that is connected the two local government. There's a canal, but a bridge was provided to connect the two. In fact, the bridge was commissioned by His Excellency, the Governor of Lagos State. For more than 50 years that I've lived in that community, if you have to come through that side, you have to come through the other end to connect to Okira. You can't go through Obawole to connect to Okira. You have to come to Ogba and then connect to Okira. And then now you could connect that. That tells you that that's the kind of indicators that you can use to measure what your State House of Assembly, what are the projects they are able to attract, not what are the machine or money or what you call empowerment program. Empowerment, because we have substituted deliverables of democracy with empowerment. With empowerment, we have substituted it with palliatives. You give people palliatives. Once they eat the rice will go. But you do projects, you provide schools, you provide hospitals, you provide all of these. Everybody, these are legacy projects. So what I think we should use to measure our legislator are the legacy project they are able to attract, not the cars they distribute as empowerment, not the machine, not the rice or the financial gift. Someone said, teach a man how to fish and you feed him forever. Give him a fish and you feed him for a time, for a moment. And so for me, if we want to measure what are the things that they have been able to attract to their various constituencies, and overall, whether you like it or not, overall, you see that Lagos State House of Assembly has been able to maintain some measure of independence from the executive. They have been able to maintain some measure of independence from the executive.
Okay. Still, since we are assessing the 10th Assembly, let's talk about how connected. You've talked about your own constituency. So, but looking at it generally now, how connected do you think the members of the House are to their constituent members?
Well, I think there is a disconnect. There's a disconnect because of misplaced expectation. Now, what people expect from their House of Assembly member, even though they are more accessible than commissioners, they are more accessible than special advisors. What people expect from them is that every time you see them, you collect money from them. Are you getting my point? People are not going. What I expect people to do to see your House of Assembly member is to go with the problem of your community, present the things that your community needs, and so that your House of Assembly member can be a voice representing you when budget are presented, and those things can be accommodated in the appropriation bill before it's assented into an act, which becomes the financial regulations, law and order for the state in the coming. So in most cases, as a result of that, most of the House of Assembly members, they run away from their constituency. 2, most of the House of Assembly members don't live in their constituency. They don't live in their
How do you now stay connected to your people?
So they don't live in their, because of this pressure, and this burden. However,
isn't that why they
the farther you run away from the people, the more problem you create for yourself. Once you make yourself accessible, it is what you can do that you do, what you can't do, you explain. And one of the other things that I've seen also is that, you see, generally, the assembly, from the speaker to the principal officers, has the speaker ever been to your program? Has he ever been to Eco FM? Has he ever been to traffic?
I can speak
for
LTV.
No, I'm just saying that they are far away from the platform that will give them access to the people. That gives them the platform to explain their policies and program. How many House of Assembly member has been to your program to explain what they've done in their constituency? It's a classic case. I use this illustration. It's a classic case between the duck and the hen. You know, the hen egg is the one that you and I eat. But you know, the duck egg is the most nutritious egg. But nobody touches it. You know why? The duck lays its egg in secret. Why the hen lays his egg in open, and he publicizes his laying his egg. You know, when hen wants to lay his egg, say, go, 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 go. Everybody within the neighborhood knows the hen wants to lay his egg. But the duck lays his egg in secret. His egg, it's bigger. Its egg is more nutritious, but nobody touches it because it does not publicize what it's doing. I give an example. Now, I've related with the State House of Assembly for a very long time. Now, I give you an example. When Olulade was the chairman of House Committee, from Ekpe. Thank you. You see, you can recall him. He was heavily involved. Who is the chairman of House Committee on Information? Has he ever been to your program? Has he ever been to the sister station? And so nobody knows whatever you are doing in secret. And this is a challenge for them. It's a challenge for the 11th Assembly that will be inaugurated this time next year. That you must use the platform which you have to amplify what you are doing, for the people to have an understanding of what you are doing, for the people to have an understanding of your roles and your responsibility.
So again, you've talked about the disconnect between the representatives and their constituent members. But again, you also mentioned something that most of them leave their constituency because of the burdens from community members. But so on the part of the members now, how important is it for them to know that you don't have to go and start asking for money or money bimo or money graduation? You are meant to you are meant to demand for infrastructures, good governance. And so again, let's now talk to the people. Let's talk to ourselves. Why do we always have to go burden them asking for stipends?
Yeah, because you burden them. You see, I love this illustration. When Obaja Konde was governor of Lagos State, he was living in Ilupeju. He doesn't have security. If you have ever been to his residence in Ilupeju, he doesn't have too much security that those that are in office now are carrying about. When you work in the interest of the people, when you live in the midst of the people, the most interesting thing, people will understand you. They understand, they can sense it, they can perceive it. They know, you can perceive someone that loves you and someone that hates you. It's there. And so, if you ask me that what should be the law that we should pass, I'll pass the law that if you are an House of Assembly member, you must live in your constituency. That in actual sense, the official residence, and I'm putting it as a challenge, that the official residence for House of Assembly member should be cited in their various constituency, not to give them official residence in Alausa or to give them in Ojota or what have you, and that will make them to be more responsive to the people at home. How often? One of the things they did in the 9th Assembly was to do town halls regularly. They go on town hall and what have you. If you recall the 9th Assembly, there were a series of town hall that they jettisoned in the in the 10th assembly. So I'll counsel the incoming 11th assembly by this time next year, because this assembly is almost gone. It's for them to reinstate that town hall. That town hall gives you an opportunity to interface with your constituents, for them to have an understanding of what you are doing, of your limitations, and the rest of it. And like you said, you and I have a responsibility, and that's why we are doing this program, educating the masses, for them to know what should be the expectation of from their lawmakers, and not be asking them for my child wife and what. But if in actual sense, if those things are actually provided, nobody will come and ask you for it. When we went to school, I remember Honorable Ayodele was the member representing, then he was under Agege local government. He was the one representing the State House of Assembly in 1983. I recall he lives in Iju Station. He was from Iju Station. 83, yeah. He lives in Iju Station. My secondary school is Faber Grammar School in Iju Station. Honorable Ayodele will come in the morning before he comes to the State House of Assembly to beat the students that are late for school. Are you getting?
Wow.
Yeah. To
from the House of Assembly.
Yeah, he was at the House of Assembly member. And what I'm saying can be controverted by whoever attended my secondary school. But that just to tell you that the community engagement, the level, I'm telling you something that happened as far back as 1983. I can still recall that memory of the interface and the interaction.
Were you ever beaten by him?
I know I was not beaten by him, because one of the values that I inherited from my father is punctuality. It's punctuality. It's having respect. It's having respect for time. And in actual sense, for example, we have this program for 11. I've been here since 10 o'clock, usually. And you ask anybody, time is of the essence. And whoever steals your time steals your life, because our life is measured in terms of time. And so you could say I could recall Honorable Ayodele, a blessed memory. And you know, those that were disciplined that time, you know the impact it made in their life, because he was involved in the community. How often do we see our assembly members getting engaged in community activities? You can only get engaged when you live within the community, when you engage with the people in the community, not coming to look for the CDC chairman or the CDA chairman alone. You gather them, you take them away from your constituency, you put them in one hotel, and the rest of that will not help. And I'm sure a lot of them have learned their lesson. You discover that a lot of people lost their re-election because they didn't know that it would be direct primary, because they are far away from their constituency. As a result of that, it was very difficult for them to go back to their constituency. Those that thought that they were popular, you remember those ones that were crying on TV that God did this. They discovered that popularity does not come by just appearing on the media or by getting involved in Nollywood and the rest of it, but by getting involved in the community which you are representing. If you get engaged with the community you are representing, I can assure you the community will stand there for you. And that's why you could say I made a reference to my constituency. Go and check the result of the primary concerning my constituency. You see the performance of our House of Assembly member. Even though he's done second term, he's going for a third term. But you will see the overwhelming support he enjoyed, because he's adequately involved and engaged in the community.
Okay, talking about actively engaged, talking about being involved. You've talked about the executive, earlier, and a healthy democracy requires cooperation between the executive and, of course, the legislature and, of course, the judiciary. But we're not talking about the judiciary now. How would you assess, the relationship between the executive and the legislature? That is the 10th Assembly in Lagos.
I think in Lagos, mutual respect, which is good for us, which is good for the citizenry. When the Assembly and the executive, when they are loggerhead, it is in the interest of the public. But when they come together, when I mean loggerheads, when they have mutual respect. That each other understand his role and responsibility and understand his lane and knows area where they can have cooperation, then it is better for the citizen. But if two of them are in cahoots, it is not in the interest of the larger side. And then you'll have discovered that to a large extent there's a mutual respect between the executive and the legislature in Lagos State, which you can't compare to other states. Like I said, the assembly in most states are an extension of the governor's office. It's an extension of the governor's office. I like if you talk, no, that one, the one for Rivers State, they are not the extension of the governor's office. They are the extension of the office of the federal Minister of Federal Capital Territory. That's where their directive and their authority comes from. And it does not work in the interest of the people.
Yeah.
Now, who are those that have suffered from it?
The people.
It is the people, it is Rivers people.
Yeah.
As Rivers people in the last 3 years enjoy deliverables of democracy. Not at all. So when they say when the grass, when the 25
fight in the grass,
but when they cooperate and understand their lane, each is working on his lane, and where they need to cooperate, they cooperate. You know the grass will be better for it.
All right. You've initially, when we started the show, you ruled out the responsibilities of the legislators, and so beyond lawmaking, let's talk about oversight functions now. Do you think that this 10th Assembly has been proactive in holding the government institutions accountable?
Well, you see, the issue with oversight function is, you see, one of the flaws of presidential system of government is that too much power is wielded in the executive. Who controls the civil service? Who gives directive to the civil service? The civil service is the engine of public administration. And you can only do oversight based on the level of documents that are shared with you and how timely. For example, I'm the chairman House Committee on Information. I require LTV, Eco FM, Traffic Radio, Lagos Radio, submit your books for oversight of the assembly. We need it within the next, we give you 14 days to submit that. You know, you can drag for the next 6 months. We can drag on that matter and not have access to that government. One of the things that hinders, even in developed democracy, have you watched public hearing of the American Congress with representatives of the government? You see the back and forth. You see the snow walling by people in the snow walling. I watched one where senators were accusing the Secretary of State Marco Rubio that because the table has turned, you are now in the executive. Now, when you used to be with us in the legislature, you used to criticize the executive of stonewalling in giving us documents, and what you were against when you are with us is what you are now standing on. So oversight function is the second responsibility of the legislature. But there is a way in which, through paperwork, that the executive, through the instrumentality of the civil service, tends to frustrate. I give you another example. You know, the one for the NNPC that Adams Oshiomhole stood up.
Yeah, last
and then he was trying to talk about the oversight. You see that fellow members, because that's the second leg. Sometimes the leadership of the assembly hinders members from performing their oversight function because of either political interest or economic interest and what have you. You see what Oshiomhole was standing for. You see the way the entire leadership was against him, what he was advocating for. Give us your audited account. And at the end of the day, he was made the fall guy.
But is it possible in the 10th Assembly in Lagos, because we have majority of lawmakers from a particular party?
You know what I advise? And that's the beauty of American democracy. You know what they do? Is that by the time it comes to midterm election, the party that controls the executive usually loses the election. So that they have a balance. The beauty of checks and balances is for another party to control the legislature and then another party to control the executive. Once you have an overwhelming majority of the ruling party controlling the legislature and controlling the executive, what you have in most cases is a rubber stamp. That's why I say rubber stamp legislature. But the beauty of the legislature is debate. Without debate, there's no legislature. And debate is the key to discovering the best idea. In the midst of battle of ideas. We engage in debate and we settle for the best idea. But where is even our local dialect captures it. All of us cannot sleep and put our head in the same direction. Are you getting my point?
Yeah.
So all of us cannot sleep. So a situation where, so usually I advise people, if you vote for a party at the executive, ensure that another party controls the legislature. That's what makes it more robust, makes it more beautiful.
But now that it's peculiar, the way we have it in Lagos, that you just have one party majority, how best do you think that they can make their way around it?
Well, it's for the legislature to understand their role. Once you understand, and it starts from you and I. Who are we sending from our community? Who are the people that you are sending from our community to represent us?
Do you even know?
Who are we sending from our community? Yeah, like you said, in most cases, their names are written. In most cases, they are selected. I give you an example. They don't live in the community. They didn't grow up in the community they want to represent.
There's a huge disconnect.
Yes, there's a disconnect. They didn't grow up in the community they want to they want to represent. I can tell you of my own House of Assembly member. He grew up in the community. We knew him as a small boy. He grew up in the community. So people must send to the State House of Assembly, to the National Assembly, who they know. You see, you know the beauty of it. It's called representative democracy. You choose from among yourself the person that will be your voice. So who is the voice of your constituency? Did you collect money before you vote for that person? If you have collected money, he has paid you, and so he's not answerable. He's not answerable to you. So we should, as a matter of policy, understand who we are sending. Does the person have the right temperament? Does he have the right voice? Does he have the right character, the competence to represent us in that house? It starts from there. Because if even you have one sane House of Assembly member and he's surrounded by 39 fools, there's nothing can, even if you have, let me say, if you have 19 sane and you have 21 idiots, the flip side of democracy is that the majority will have their way. The 21 idiots will continually be having their way. They will pass the bill, and whatever bill they pass becomes the law. There's nothing denying. It's a game. Democracy is a game of numbers. And so, as a matter of fact, we must be interested in who is representing us at this state.
I still want to dwell on the disconnect again, because the 10th Assembly in few months will be over, and so there's an issue of trust.
Next year.
It will soon be over. Election cycle is here. You are not doing anything again. The
campaign will soon start, you know, and so again, people don't really have trust anymore in the system or in the government. And then you have cited examples of representatives who don't stay among their people, they go live outside, and so there's a huge disconnect. And so again, maybe a word of advice for the 11th Assembly coming up.
You know, you have just touched on a particular thing that I worked on yesterday, which is public trust of democratic institution. What is the trust and confidence that we have in democratic institutions? How reliable and credible are these institutions? And that's what I gave the illustration of Abacha Conde. When Abacha Conde was in office, he was living in Lupeju. When he left office, he was living in Lupeju. You could assess his residence. When he was Minister of Works under Abacha or housing or something like that, he was living in Lupeju. And so the question you ask is, the present crop of politicians that we have, do they even live in the midst of their people? Are they even accessible? Is it that you see the people carrying guns that surround them makes them inaccessible, and that's why people have lost trust entirely in democratic institutions and in democratic governance, because democracy is government of the people, by the people, and for the people. If you are for me, and then security, okay, let me talk about one thing. Which you talk about in terms of trust, which I talk about security. I remember in this State Assembly, I went to the State House of Assembly. I went for, that would be about a long while that I've been there, and I saw that the place was barricaded. They put in security, they put perimeters and security issue. I was livid. I was angry. And I said this, I told the police, I said, You can't block me. Or the speaker himself will come down. This is the people's house. This state house belongs to me. It does not belong to them. I have every right to come to this state house of assembly without all this perimeter you are putting as if it's a garrison. Is the house of assembly controlled by a garrison commander?
No.
This was not like this under Akuforiji. It was not like this under Akuforiji. It was not like this under Mamora. That you now created a garrison. I was rattled. As I said, how? And then you have, I told LACA members, and you have LACA members covering the state house of assembly. And you saw them doing this. The assembly it belongs to the people. That's why it's called the people's house. It should be the most accessible. In fact, the governor office is even more accessible than the perimeter they created, because you talk about the security which you made mention of. And I think that they need to dismantle that. Whoever is coming in as the speaker in the 11th assembly need to dismantle that military structure, that anti-people structure that in the state house of assembly. And then they do screening as if you are going into a century. Are you getting it? And it's pathetic. That's the flaw of the 10th assembly, and they need to hear that, and that thing need to be destroyed completely. You need to open it up. We are not saying that every Tom, Dick, and Harry should just come. Well, if you have a business there, there are processes and procedure, but don't create. And that's one of the things that people lack trust in this system. And I know one of the reasons they said they did it was that you have urchins coming to disturb them. You know, street urchins. And what we call it, the good boys. You know. But you know, the good boys are instrumental in election. They are very, very useful. When you use them for the election, you not dump them.
You don't abandon them.
You said they should come and disturb it. They are critical stakeholders. Because you and I will not go out and vote. They are the ones that will go out and vote. They are the ones that will mobilize people. And so you must know how to take care of the critical stakeholders. Because the critical stakeholder can't see them in their various constituencies. That's why they come there. They create barrier at home. And now those ones will come and meet them in the assembly. They're not trying to create barrier. Open it up.
Mr. Jide Johnson, communications expert and chief lecturer at the Nigerian Institute of Journalism. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. As the 10th Lagos Assembly enters its final year, the expectations of residents remain clear: effective representation, responsible oversight, impactful legislation, and stronger connection between government and the governed. Once again, thank you for joining us.
It's a pleasure. Shout out to my House of Assembly member. He's doing well. Honorable Timothy Jide.
You're doing campaign. You will pay.
He's doing well.
Okay.
We'll be right back after this short break.
The views expressed on this program do not represent that of the producer, management of Lagos Television, or the Lagos State Government. They remain the perspectives of those expressing them. Thank you for staying with Lagos Television.